Factories that are moving in, the car plants are moving in. Yesterday I was with Mr. Toyota in Japan, and he's just announced he's going to spend, they are going to spend $10 billion, and they're going to build new car plants, and they're going to build them in numerous states, about 6 or 7 different states. And we're bringing our car industry back. We're bringing AI. We're leading everybody in AI. We're leading every nation in AI by a lot. In 9 months, we've lifted over 600,000 Americans off food stamps. Wages for workers are rising at the fastest pace in more than 60 years. And meanwhile, energy prices are down. Gasoline prices are down. Grocery prices are down. Mortgage rates are down, despite the fact that we have an incompetent head of the Fed. He's incompetent. I call him Jerome Too Late. He's always too late. Jerome Too Late Powell. But he's out of there in another couple of months. We'll be very happy about that. We'll appoint somebody that we all like, because we should have the lowest interest rates of any country, because without us, there are no other countries, really. I mean, the whole thing falls apart. You know, America always had the lowest interest rates, and now we don't do that. We're like number 28. It's ridiculous. And we're a much different country than we were 2 years ago or a year ago even. But you know what the crazy thing is? In the old days, I call the old days, I'm a little bit older. I'm looking at all these young, brilliant faces. I'm a slight, a couple of years older than you, just a couple of years. But in the old days, when you announced good news, the stock market went up. You announced good news, the stock market would go up. Now when you announce good news, the stock market goes down, because people say, oh, that's terrible. You're doing well, that's terrible. Interest rates will go up. So they think because of that, interest rates will go up because that. It's inverse to what it should be. We're going to go back to the way it used to be. When we announce good news, the stock markets are going to go up. And that's the way it should be. And we're going to really ride that very hard. And when we announce good news, we're not going to have a Fed that's going to raise interest rates because they're worried about inflation in 3 years from now or something. When we announce good news, we want the stock market to go up, not to go down. And the scourge of inflation we inherited. We inherited the worst inflation ever that we've ever had. I inherited from incompetent people, and now we're down to a very low rate of inflation, 2.7%, and it's going to be a little bit lower than that. It's almost a perfect number. Believe it or not, you don't want to have zero. You want to have like 1% to 2%, and we're very close to that number. But we had inflation the worst in the history of our country. But factories are booming in the USA, and manufacturing productivity is rising 5 times faster than it was just 1 year ago. Think of that. Steel production is way up by 155,000 tons a week. Oil production is through the roof by 500,000 barrels a day. And mining of clean, beautiful coal, I call it clean, beautiful coal, is up by 2.6 million tons every single month. And we brought coal back into the picture. What you can do with coal today is incredible. So I call it clean, beautiful. I don't use the word coal, I say, because it's got a little bit of a problem, public relations-wise, the word. So we call it clean, beautiful. My administration's not allowed to use the word coal. They have to say clean, beautiful coal. We've given it a new name. It's a three-name deal. Even semiconductor manufacturing is rapidly returning to the United States. NVIDIA and TSMC have just produced the first state-of-the-art Blackwell chip that was 100% made in the USA. In fact, Jensen, who's an incredible guy, he might be here. I don't even know. Is Jensen here? I think he's around. Somebody said he's here. How is he? Pretty good, right? Got a chip that's like 10 years advanced, but he's great. And they're all building now. They're building tremendous plants in the United States, Arizona, Texas, all over. We're going to have a big portion of the chip market just in a very short period of time. But these tremendous strides are also creating great jobs for our citizens. 1.9 million more American-born workers are employed today than when I took office 9 months ago. Think of that. Almost 2 million people more American workers. Nobody's ever had numbers like that. And those numbers are going to get much bigger, much better than that when we open these plants that are being built all over, the AI plants. I've never seen plants this big. I built shopping centers. I built a lot of things. But if you spend 250, 300 million, you can build a big shopping center. These people are spending $50 billion to build a building. And I say, what's your product? Information. I said, well, good luck. That's a lot of information you're going to have. But, you know, they're the smartest people in the world. They're doing it, and they all think it's great. All I can do is make it easy for them. And what I've done, one of the things that I'm most proud of, because I thought of it like every, you know, country, our electricity production, our energy production is not, you know, it's not, nobody ever saw this kind of a revolution with the AI. And what they need more than anything is electricity. So if a country was able to do that, it would be, you know, pretty unusual. It would be very hard, maybe you could say impossible. So I came up with a concept when they build a massive plant, sometimes the size of Manhattan. Think of that. The size of Manhattan, these plants are the biggest. I've never seen anything like it, actually. Nobody has. There's never been anything like it. But I let them build their own electricity generating plants with it. So they're building their own electric. They're sort of becoming an electric producing company in addition to all of the other things that they produce, including information. And what they're able to do is start immediately. We're giving them very fast permits. We're no longer having them wait for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years prior to rejection. They'd go 15 years and then they'd get a vote, a rejection. And by that time, their concepts were old and obsolete anyway. So, you know, it's terrible. And we're getting it done rapidly, literally rapidly. And they're coming up with electric generating plants, the likes of which nobody has seen. The companies are standard companies that do electricity and create power companies. They've never seen anything like it because we have a level of genius, a level of people that are designing things that nobody's ever seen before that produces vast amounts of electricity for their plant. And if they have extra electricity, they sell it back into the grid. So they really, I mean, it's really been amazing. And it allows people to start building immediately, and they can't blame the government. They won't blame me because I didn't produce enough out of the grid that's 200 years old. So we have more people now working than at any time in the history of our country. We've sort of just begun. It's hard to believe, actually, if you knew where we were 2 years ago. All of this is incredible news for Americans and for nations around the globe, and it is for South Korea because we're partners. We're serious partners. We're wedded, and we have a very special relationship, a special bond. In fact, we're working with you on shipbuilding, where you're going to come in. We were the #1 in the world during World War II. We produced a ship a day. Can you believe it? You know, tankers and freighters and this, a ship a day. And today we're not really building ships, and we're going to start, and we're going to have a very thriving shipbuilding industry, and we're working it with South Korea very much so. In fact, some of the people in this room, they bought the Philadelphia shipyard. I think it's going to be one of the most successful yards in the world, anywhere in the world. It's great. Known for incredible production years ago, and sort of through bad management or bad thinking by people that were prior to me. I mean, you have to blame the president. You can give the president credit or blame the president, but I blame the president. They allowed the shipbuilding industry to go away, essentially, in our country. We're going to bring it back very, very powerfully. When America thrives, our partners thrive, and our alliances thrive with all of the countries. The Indo-Pacific thrives, and that's good for all of us, and the entire world becomes safer and wealthy and greater than ever before. We get along with a lot of countries. We solved a lot of wars and a lot of problems, and that's all good for all of us. The extraordinary American turnaround that I've just described has been achieved not by just continuing business as usual back in Washington. If I didn't win the election, and we won it in a landslide, we won by tremendous numbers. I had a whole thing too big, you have to say, too big to rig. We didn't want any rigging. We had these great polls going in. I said, don't believe the polls. Pretend we're 1 point down. Always assume we're 1 point down. And everybody voted. We won in a landslide. We won all 7 swing states. You have to win the swing states. And we won all 7, which is something that rarely happens. But to win the popular vote by millions, we won everything you can win. The Electoral College by a tremendous amount. We won in counties. They have counties. thousands of counties, and we were 2,700 compared to 525 actually. So think of that. We were 2,750 compared to 525. And that's why the map shows all red. Red being Republican, not something else. Red being Republican. Only a few people understand that one. My administration has rejected the old model of incompetent government that punished success and rewarded failure and made building anything almost impossible. When you come into our country, and many of you are doing that, but when you come into America, you're going to get service like you've never seen before. Quick permits, and we want safety, we want great environmental, we want everything good, but it's going to go quickly. We're rewarding those who build and create and hire and invest in the USA, and we're making America the best place on earth to do business, and that's what it's become very quickly. We have some wonderful people. Lee Zeldin at Environmental, he's incredible. He gets the right result quickly, and he makes sure that people do the right thing. But we will have the best tax rates, the lowest energy costs. We have the lowest energy. We have tremendous amounts of energy, more than anybody else. We have the most oil and gas and coal, more than any other nation on earth. So that's a big advantage that we have over others. We have the lowest regulatory burden. In my first term, we cut more regulations than any other administration in history, and we're going to do about the same level right now or more if we can. The most advanced technology and the fairest trade deals anywhere in the world. And for decades before I took office, our country was run by legions of bureaucrats who were always looking for a reason to say no. Why? How can we say no? They wanted to say no. They thought that was their job, and it's really just the opposite. We work to say yes. So now we have a president in the White House who cuts through the red tape and excuses. We don't stand for excuses, and says yes to big ideas and bold initiatives and grand ambitions so that America can have great industries, great dreams, and to be the greatest nation on earth, which is where we are now, actually, in a very short period of time. We're rebuilding things that are incredible. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the best equipment. We have the best manufacturers of equipment. And South Korea is buying a lot of our weapons. We make the best. We have the planes and just about everything other than ships, and we'll be there very shortly with ships too. But the only reason it's not ships, because, I don't know, for some reason they stopped doing that. I guess they went on to other businesses, but there are some basics in life, and one of the things you need is ships. I always say you need steel, you need aluminum, you need this. There are things you don't need. A lot of things that a country doesn't need them, but things you need steel. Got to have steel, and we're redoing our steel, and some of the people in this room are very involved in that. We're redoing our industry. We're starting to produce large amounts of steel, massive amounts of steel. We'll be right at the top in a very short period of time. The mills are opening again, and they're opening up big. And again, it's national security, and it's because of tariffs. We're reclaiming our heritage as a nation of builders and doers, and we're pioneers in a sense, but we're really doing it again, but we're doing it even better than we did the first time, which is the first couple of 100 years. And we're pursuing this vision with unrelenting drive and really unprecedented success. In July, I proudly sounded law. It was very important. I went into the archives. We looked at every possible thing you could look at, and I signed into law the largest tax cuts in American history. And as you remember, in my first term, we cut taxes from 39% down to 21%. And now we've done even better than that, putting more money in the pockets of American families that make up the largest consumer market on earth for businesses and manufacturers like those in this room. Our tax law includes 100% expensing for all new factories, plants, and equipment. So that means you can write everything off in the first year. So that's like we had in the first, except this goes for a period of 10 years. Whereas the other was over a much shorter period of time. And I actually think that we had such tremendous success. I always said that was the single most important thing, the expensing, the one-year expensing. Upon taking office, I signed executive orders that require that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations have to be eliminated. I did that in the first term, too, and it worked. So if you want a new regulation, you have to get rid of 10, and already we're exceeding that limit, reaching closer to 30 to 1. Our people have done that, our great secretaries and other people in the administration. So we've been actually at a level where we sign in a new regulation, they get rid of 30 older. We're sort of cleaning up the books because many of these regulations are obsolete.
All right, there, viewers, you could see Donald Trump speaking in South Korea. Let's keep the frame on air. Donald Trump, of course, there speaking at the APEC summit in South Korea. He's, of course, addressing the business leaders who are gathered over there, highlighting once again his America First pitch. He's spoken about semiconductors. He's spoken about increasing electricity capacity. He's also spoken about shipbuilding, artificial intelligence, augmenting the production of steel. He's spoken about America's allies as well, including South Korea and Japan. Remember, he's wrapped up his visit in Tokyo yesterday itself. There were some key deals inked. Nearly $550 billion US are slated to be invested in the United States from Japan. Trump, along with his America First speech, has also emphasized that when America thrives, its alliances also thrives, and the Indo-Pacific thrives as well. He's called, in fact, South Korea one of the few places with enduring democracy. He's thanked, in fact, President Lee Jae-myung for what he calls an important meeting. Apart from this, we all do know that there's another very crucial bilateral meeting on the cards, which will take place tomorrow. That is with the President of China, Xi Jinping. There are tensions simmering between the United States of America and China as far as Trump's tariff policies are concerned, the restrictions on rare earths imposed by China, the high port fees, reciprocal action, back and forth is going on. Yes, communication channels are open. We've recently seen a conversation between Wang Yi and Marco Rubio as well. But all in all, this is a very important summit, and the two leaders, Trump and Xi, are going to be sitting down tomorrow at the sidelines of the APEC in Yeongju to discuss what exactly is transpiring. With me on the broadcast is Mr. Spencer Critchley. He's a communication strategist joining us from California. Also with me is Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Busan. I'd like to go across to Mr. Critchley first. Once again, in a similar fashion to all his speeches outside America, Donald Trump has once again touted his America First policy. He slammed the previous administration, the Biden administration. He stated that his administration has fast-tracked permits for private companies as far as ensuring that their operations are conducted seamlessly is concerned. He's spoken about his executive orders. He's also claimed, interestingly, that jobs have risen for American-born people. Prices are down, mortgages are down to record levels as well. He's spoken about the interest rates, and at the same time, he's called the governor, the Federal Reserve governor, incompetent. What are your takeaways from his speech?
Well, it's unfortunately an all too predictable Donald Trump performance. A great deal of what he was saying there was the opposite of the truth, which is just absolutely commonplace for him, talking about prices being down when they're up and employment being up when it's down, for example. And the way he describes slashing regulations sounds like it might be good if you're a fan of government efficiency, and most people are. But in fact, what he's been doing is slashing regulations and even slashing law enforcement investigations for his friends at giant corporations. So he's actually eliminated the function in the U.S. Justice Department to pursue investigations of white-collar crime, for example. And as far as America First goes, unfortunately, as we heard in that speech, it turns out to be Trump first. It's really a tedious recitation of his claimed accomplishments, most of which, as I say, are false.
Indeed, and he's spoken about, as I mentioned earlier, reducing the interest rates. He's spoken about the U.S. stock markets as well. We do know that economists are in fact, expressing concerns about a sort of double whammy impacting the United States very, very soon, especially if the government shutdown continues. The tariff policies have resulted in increased prices for consumers at the base levels. And the Fed has warned of a recession if the Democrats and Republicans don't really get back onto the table to sort of resolve their differences. So it's likely that the interest rates will be reduced, something that Donald Trump has been wanting for a while.
Yes, ironically, the interest rates are likely to be reduced because the economy is suffering because of Trump's tariff policies and other moves. So he was demanding that the Federal Reserve reduce interest rates when the economy was doing well, which of course is absolutely counterindicated and it would be an inflationary move. The reason he wants interest rates to be reduced is to juice the economy artificially, and he does not care about the long-term inflationary effects. He just wants the short-term hit of, as I say, juicing the economy with artificially low interest rates. But by pursuing these destructive economic policies, he actually is causing the economy to slow down to the point where raising interest rates becomes reasonable.
Interestingly, there's a message that Donald Trump put out just a while back on Truth Social. He stated, for those that are asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada, thereby ruling out any sort of murmurs as far as a bilateral with Carney is concerned. Where do you think US-Canada ties are heading? Because Canada, of course, is an indispensable partner, not just a neighbor of the United States of America, but a trade partner as well.
You know, I often wish that I could come up with something positive to say about President Trump with pretty much any other president, whether they're somebody I agree with or not. You can find some positive things to say about them, but the problem with Trump is that his character flaws are so absolutely fundamental that is the story with him. That is the major problem. This fight with Canada is an example. The reason that he has re-escalated it is that he saw an ad run by the Canadian province of Ontario that made him personally angry. And so he added new 10% tariffs on one of our closest trading partners and one of our strongest allies of very long standing. It's obviously unfair to Canada, but it's incredibly self-destructive for the United States, and he's doing it because his feelings were hurt, essentially. This ad featured former President Ronald Reagan saying that he hated tariffs because of exactly what we see them doing with Trump imposing them. They actually harm not only our trading partners, but also harm the United States through things like higher prices and damaged trade relationships and alliances. Trump got upset, slapped these new tariffs on Canada, and halted all trade discussions with them, again, because he was personally upset, which should be just utterly unthinkable in an American president, but it's all too predictable. And then he claimed that this was a false attribution to Reagan, that Reagan never said those things, and maybe it was done by AI, and that Reagan actually loved tariffs. Once again, that is 100% the opposite of the truth.
Indeed, and my very last question to you, I wanted to understand, what are your expectations from the Trump-Xi meeting lined up tomorrow?
I imagine it'll be largely performative, as most of these trade meetings have been. Trump loves these gestures, and he loves to be photographed signing documents and then holding up the document to show off his beautiful signature. Apparently is the highlight of the event for him. With the China relationship, you know, there's plenty for the United States to want to negotiate with China over. It's not like China has behaved perfectly in its dealings with the United States and with other international partners. But with Trump, the approach seems to be to start a fire like an arsonist and then show up and pretend to be the fire department to put it out. So he puts these enormous tariffs on China, causes them to retaliate, which once again not only harms China but harms the United States, and then comes in to negotiate what are just unimaginably high tariffs on the order of 150%, down to something that now somehow seems reasonable, like 10 to 30%, which is still incredibly high by historic standards, recent historic standards, when global tariffs were more on the order of 1 or 2%.
All right, Mr. Critchley, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective, your analysis with us. I'd also like to rope in Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist from the Korea Herald, joining us from Busan. You're, of course, at the center of all of these high-octane developments that are taking place in South Korea. At the outset, I wanted to understand from you, how is the South Korean administration viewing what Donald Trump is saying as far as cooperation regarding shipbuilding is concerned? There's a fresh announcement by Amazon as well, pledging $5 billion in data center investment in South Korea.
Yes, well, from South Korean perspective, the government here wants to bridge the advanced economies and the emerging economies, and this Gyeongju's APEC summit is a good platform to bridge those gaps, and that is why the hopes are high, stakes are high from South Korean government, and President Trump is also looks optimistic, not just from the perspective of Korea, but also to bridge different gaps, including talk with Chinese President Xi and the other major economies. So that is why, from South Korean perspective, it is really important. And there is a geopolitical angle as well, because this part of the world, these inter-Korean relations are always disturbed because of the North Korea and Kim Jong-un. So President Trump just recently, he also said that he would love to meet Kim if he wants, but nothing has been positive so far. But from South Korean perspective, it should be seen as a good gesture from President Trump, because this shows how he looks interested in engaging the North in talks. So although it's a multilateral platform, but many bilaterals are going to happen, and I'm sure something concrete is going to be achieved from South Korean perspective.
Speaking of something concrete, Donald Trump has stated that a trade deal with South Korea will be finalized very, very soon. But we've recently also, in fact, seen that the administration is a little apprehensive, as Trump is seeking $350 billion in investments from Seoul in the United States of America. We'd earlier, in fact, seen President Lee Jae-myung himself express the fact that that would require some sort of currency swap to take place as well. So what are the concerns that the administration has at this point?
Well, when President Lee and President Trump met in August, they agreed to force the things in positive way, but that time the items and details were not finalized. And because of that, many kind of disagreements are underlying. But from South Korean perspective, they have been approaching the U.S. administration, and talks had been ongoing. They are already negotiating. But yes, this $350 billion investment remains, there are some confusions over it. Like U.S. government has their own priorities, and South Korean government has their own. And there is a currency swap issue as well. But looks like it is heading towards a positive direction. And especially South Korean ambassador to U.S., Kang Kyung-hwa, she is also playing a key role in facilitating that dialogue. And even the trade ministry officials from South Korea is also trying their best to reach a conclusion. So this APEC summit would be a kind of momentum in once again meeting. We should not forget that time President Lee said that Trump is a peacemaker, but he would like to play a role of pacemaker. And that is why South Korean government is set to offer President Trump the highest national honor, the Order of Mugunghwa also. So I think there is a lot of positivities, and these things spin a lot of hopes of optimism. And this will, in long run, I think, can play a role in actualizing the South Korea's current government's pragmatic diplomacy. Although it is a test, but especially tomorrow, when President Trump will meet President Xi of China, definitely many things can be said.
Indeed. Speaking of China, Donald Trump has spoken also about the Indo-Pacific at large. We do know that he just, as I mentioned earlier, wrapped up a visit to Japan as well. So the US is eyeing the larger security matrix in the Indo-Pacific. But South Korea cannot ignore geography. What are your expectations from the Trump-Xi meeting? Because as we know it, South Korea is caught in a very delicate position considering its close proximity to China as well as its close alliance with the United States.
Yeah, it is a difficult time for South Korea in making decisions over Indo-Pacific. But as you know, US-ROK relations remain ironclad, and that is why when there will be discussions on this front, definitely South Korea is going to be in the Indo-Pacific. They are in the Indo-Pacific, and many exercises have been happening too. And this time, many other countries who are, like-minded countries who are also in this APEC, such as South Korea and US, and including other countries, they are definitely going to talk in a positive way, and they would not try, South Korea would not try to offend China in such aspect. And without offending China, they would try their best to somehow bridge those things and forge with Indo-Pacific, because South Korea is not negative about it. South Korea is part of Indo-Pacific. They are passive because of, the turbulent neighborhood. So that is the concern. And that concern, I think South Korea is well aware. It is a diplomatic test drive. But President Lee looks very firm and very balanced right now. And that is why the South Korean government is trying to set some kind of agenda in a positive direction with geoeconomics in the center.
Absolutely. Speaking of the turbulent neighborhood, there's another very crucial update coming in from Seoul at this point. I request you to stay on with us as we track this. We're now learning that Donald Trump has stated that he expects to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the near future. Trump has made these remarks while, of course, heading to the summit earlier. He has added that both sides are interested in renewing engagement over North Korea's nuclear program. These comments, of course, come as Washington and Pyongyang have shown signs of reopening communication channels after years of stalled negotiations. Meanwhile, officials in the United States of America are reportedly discussing logistics for a possible meeting, including security arrangements and the diplomatic agenda as well. The focus is expected to be on denuclearization and regional stability, with the meeting likely to take place after the summit as well. The last face-to-face encounter, remember, between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un was back in June 2019 at the demilitarized zone point, which was aimed at easing tensions in the Korean peninsula. Trump, remember, had briefly crossed into North Korean territory during that particular meeting. Negotiations have since struggled to make substantial progress, with Pyongyang reiterating demands for sanctions relief, while the United States has continued to press for nuclear concessions. Still with me on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar. We do know that denuclearization, the nuclear weapons itself that North Korea has, is a sort of a red line. We've seen attempts, and we've spoken about it in length as well, by the Lee Jae-myung administration extending an olive branch to Kim Jong-un, one that has been constantly rebuffed. What do you think are the chances of such a meeting catalyzing? President Trump, of course, now coming out and once again is expressing his inclination to meeting Kim Jong-un.
Well, Pia, when it comes to personal diplomacy of Trump and Kim, a Trump-Kim meeting can be possible anytime when these both leaders agreed. Trump was trying to somehow show some signal just a few days ago that he may meet or he would love to meet. But, Kim was very passive and he has not responded anything on that. Instead, their foreign ministry representative, Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee, she visited Russia also. So things are not in that direction right now, and it is highly likely because of this denuclearization policy of North Korea. They really don't want to even talk about that. That is why personal diplomacy, of course, it is possible anytime, and that is why Trump has said that if not this time, in future, he is open to meet, and that is why that meeting can be possible anytime. But if you ask me, very frank opinion right now, this is highly unlikely. And especially Panmunjom meeting, Panmunjom is not very far from Gyeongju. It is 270 kilometers, and it's just an hour flight. But I'm not sure. I am not positive about it that this APEC meeting is going to, or like during this period, Trump is going to make that happen. But yeah, in future, it is opened, and South Korea also would receive such meetings with open arms. People here are very, very positive to see any kind of engagement, and South Korean government also wants to live under peaceful coexistence kind of policy through dialogue, and they are ready to ignore some of the things being done by North Korea. But unfortunately, North Korea has fired some missile, which is not very uncommon for the global world. So saying this, I don't think so that any Trump-Kim meeting is likely to happen in this epoch.
All right, with that, sir, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. More news coming in. We're now learning that North Korea has test-fired multiple cruise missiles off its western coast just hours before US President Donald Trump arrived in South Korea. North Korean state media reported that the sea-to-surface missiles were launched from the Yellow Sea yesterday, and they flew for about 2 hours. The launch was overseen by senior North Korean military officials. The test itself was reportedly aimed at verifying the reliability of strategic weapon systems and demonstrating the country's nuclear deterrence capabilities. Notably, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was not present at the launch, unlike previous high-profile tests. Meanwhile, South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff has confirmed that they detected the missiles at around 3 p.m. local time yesterday. The projectiles were identified as cruise missiles, and now further analysis is underway. The latest missile firing by North Korea comes ahead of Trump's visit to South Korea, which is currently underway. He has in fact discussed regional security and nuclear issues with Lee Jae-myung. Security cooperation is high on agenda, as is economic ties and inking a trade deal. Meanwhile, of course, the crucial meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping is slated to take place tomorrow. Meanwhile, viewers, more news coming in. The Chinese Defense Ministry has confirmed that India and China have held a fresh round of border talks aimed at strengthening communication and reducing tensions along the western sector of the disputed frontier. The ministry has stated that both sides have agreed to maintain active and in-depth dialogue through military and diplomatic channels. The latest discussions were held on the Indian side of the meeting point and focused on improving coordination and managing sensitive zones along the line of actual control. Beijing has stated that the meeting reaffirmed the commitment of both militaries to avoid misunderstandings and preserve stability in the western sector. India's Ministry of External Affairs has yet to issue a statement, but officials have characterized recent talks as constructive and conducive to easing long-standing border frictions. Remember, in July, India and China had held discussions along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh, which China described as candid, while India painted the talks as a positive step towards the normalization of ties between the two countries. The renewed engagement comes amid a slow thaw in relations since the deadly Galwan Valley clash in 2020. The next round of talks is expected later this year. Shifting focus to more news coming in, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has held bilateral talks with Japan's Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi. Hegseth has stated that the Japan-U.S. alliance is critical to deterring Chinese military aggression. He has also added that the United States looks forward to strengthening the Japan-U.S. equation in order to respond to regional contingencies and keep both countries safe. After their meeting, Hegseth stated that he had a great meeting with the Japanese defense minister. The U.S. Defense Secretary has in fact emphasized that he welcomes Japan's commitment to increasing its defense spending and that the two countries can achieve peace through strength. Remember, yesterday when Trump was speaking to U.S. troops aboard USS George Washington, he had emphasized that a deal for the United States to provide missiles to Japan has been finalized, and the missiles are likely to be received by Japan sometime later this week. More news coming in. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is urging China to stop its help to Russia to evade Western sanctions and use its influence to press Moscow to end the war. Speaking in Kiev alongside Dutch Foreign Minister David van Weel, he stated that Beijing should not help prolong the conflict in any form. Listen in to what he said.
Зараз є Китай, який є великим імпортером російської енергоресурсів. І якщо президенту Трампу вдасться поговорити або вирішити, прийняти рішення, знайти порозуміння з Китаєм на те, щоб зменшити імпорт російської енергетики, я думаю, нам всім це допоможе. У нас були розмови телефоні з Сі Цзіньпіном, він мене запевнив, що зброю продавати русським він не буде. Ми бачимо, що Китай давав верстати для зброї Російської Федерації. Ми бачимо, що допомагає обходу санкцій. Ми бачимо, що є китайські найомники, найманці, які воювали проти українських військових. Ви знаєте, що у нас вони в полоні були деякі, так, ті, хто вижили. Ну і тому ми б дуже хотіли, щоб Китай тиснув на Росію закінчити цю війну і ні в якій формі не допомагав її продовжувати.
All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on the China Report. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.
Thank you.